Welcome to the new episode of All That Jazz. I'm your host, Matyash, and I have with me Ben Bigelow. Welcome to the podcast.
In the Zoom house.
In the Zoom, that's where I do all my podcasts. It's great.
Cool,
So,
man.
our connection is Dr. Hawkins, as a lot of my guests. And all right, let's start with the beginning. Like, how did what was your spiritual background? I never asked you this. Were you religious or were you, what happened? What was going on?
Yeah, you know, I would say I walked through my first 18 years. Um, no joke.
Really?
Um, it didn't seem like that at the time, but I did feel a little incarcerated. I felt a little I felt a little trapped. I felt little. It just I didn't understand it at the time because that's all I knew as reality. But I grew up in a small town in the Midwest of the United States called Minnesota. Really pretty far north, pretty cold, a lot of snow. Um, and just grew up in a family that, there was no high art, there was no books, really.
Right.
But there was one salvation was music. And my dad enjoyed like 1950s music, Buddy Holly and some country, good old country and stuff like that. And I remember being a little kid and hearing Louis Armstrong. My dad got Time Life tapes.
Yeah.
And I remember I put one in his truck, and I think it came free with his truck. There'd be like talking, a guy talking about the truck, and then they'd go into "What a Wonderful World." And I remember just sitting there and being like, and I think that's the first time I cried to music was "What a Wonderful World." Like the impact
Wow.
of the energy of that song, it did hit me. I remember that as a kid. I also remember as a young kid playing "Ring Around the Rosies" with about 4 or 5 other kids in our living room at that time. And I remember looking at the other children and saying, "I can't stop my mind. Can you guys stop your mind?" And like most of them were just like, stop for a second. We're like, whatever. There was one of the kids, I think it was a girl, was like, no, and like we had a deep moment there for a second. But other than that,
Wow.
it was pretty much just sleepwalking.
What
Um,
what was the game though? I'm curious. I
Ring
obviously
around
not
the
growing
rosy.
up in the US.
Yeah, when you're little kids, you're just moving your body, you're just being, and at that time, Ring Around the Rosies, I guess, was a game we played where we just kind of held on to hands and we went in a circle as fast as we could. And you say, "Ring around the rosies, pocket full of posies, ashes, ashes, we all fall down." And then everybody just sits down in a circle. And it's just a little game kids play. I don't think there's a point to it, but
Oh, okay. That sounds
I
really
haven't thought
cool
of that
though. That sounds
forever.
really cool.
Yeah, like I haven't thought of that dang game. It seemed cool when I was getting, no, but yeah. But anyway, so yeah, there was a few moments like that. But in general, and I remember hearing somebody say something a few times where it was like, oh, that was out of the ordinary. That was different. Where there would be a little inkling of a context expansion of what life is, just an inkling. But it wasn't until I left for college, and oh man, what by grace I went to I did go to a great college. It was called Gustavus Adolphus College, a Swedish Lutheran college.
Okay.
Um, a lot of I'm Norwegian, big time, and a lot of us are Scandinavians in Minnesota, a
Yeah.
lot of us. But this was a Swedish Lutheran, and great school. So going there, it was like it something changed. Something was changing, and I had my first what I would call a true spiritual experience during freshman orientation. These two guys they were called Story Hill, but they were singing John Denver type songs, but with with harmonies. And I swear I was hearing a full orchestra. I looked up there and I'm like, where's all the other instruments? And I'm like, is everybody else feeling this? I'm like, look around, I'm like, this is amazing. And I was having a first kind of like transcendent experience of like something profound and with tears and just timelessness, kind of in that sense of like, wow, this music is just hitting me deep. And it was almost like moving out of my small little town and small house. There was only this much panorama of possible potential experience. And going to
Yeah.
college, you're coming with kids. I mean, there were some bright kids at that school. I marveled at the minds of the kids. I definitely was not one of them high IQ children, and there were many there, and it was awesome. It humbled me, and it was fascinating, and it opened me up. Started to open me up.
Mm.
So to get to like kind of the opening with God. So there started to be some kind of like little like spiritual experiences in that way. And then I met a girl, um, who, wow, she was like a mentor to me, made me want to be a better person. She saw me at my highest and she would hold me there, and just, she kind of accepted and loved me deeply. And I wanted to step up to be with her. I wanted to step up in
Right.
it. It helped like and what's interesting about whenever I'd see her in the college, as I walk around, I'd feel Kundalini shoot up into my body. So I would see
Wow.
her and I would feel this shooting sensation go up through my gut. And I'd be like, I'd look at her. Of course, when you first have these experiences, you have no idea what they are. And I remember looking at her and being like, are you feeling that too? And she'd be like, no. You know, she was like, but she was open. She wanted to understand. But I was feeling my first Kundalini experience, you know?
Wow.
And
So you were primed. You were primed already.
oh, I was a ripe apple ready to fall off a tree. That's what I say. Yeah, it's true. So one day I'm walking, it was my sophomore year. I'm like, I need to take a religion credit. So I opened up the syllabus, right? And nobody knew what I was looking at. It was just me sitting in the middle of this beautiful campus up on this hill, these big old trees. And I opened up, I was looking at religion credits. Suddenly this woman out of the blue I'd never talked to her before, didn't know her name, maybe saw her face, small college, but she just suddenly goes, you want to take studies in religion with Mary Solberg, this teacher. And I was like, and I was already like I was open to receiving that. I was like, all right, I'll take that as a sign. So I contacted the teacher. The class was full, but she got me in. I started this class and she goes, the first day of class, this woman says, how do you know what truth is? And how do you know what you've been spoon fed your whole life? What your parents have told you is truth. And
Wow.
she asked that on the first day of this class called Studies in Religion.
Hold on,
And
hold on. How did
yeah,
that woman, by the way, how did that woman know that you were, did she come close enough that she'd be able to see?
no, she was coming from a completely different side, so she couldn't see which department I was looking in the skinny little syllabus. She would have no clue. So it was just a synchronicity. It was a happening. It was a
Oh, she
blessing.
just picked up on that you might be interested. You didn't
I don't think
talk
she
about
knew
it?
anything. I think in that moment she just felt inspired to tell me that, and probably didn't know why, and she probably didn't think about it again. But it was something that blessed me tremendously, you know.
Wow. That was
And
like God's guidance in a way through other people.
I believe so, you know, and I can't know. Those are things you can never know. But I remember looking up from my syllabus and she was coming from completely opposite direction, so she couldn't see what I was looking at. So but anyways, things like that happen, you know, synchronicities, yeah. Anyways, so after she said that, my jaw dropped. I couldn't speak in that class for about a month. I would hear these beautiful minds talking about these deep things about God, and I'd be like, wow, wow. That's all I could do was sit there and say, wow. It's like, this stuff is real. And not only is it real, it's big. And my mind cannot comprehend it. And I'm in awe. And this is just amazing. That's all I knew. And, but I couldn't talk. So I was going home. I think it was for my birthday. I'm not sure what it was for, but I was driving on Highway 169 along the Minnesota River, and it was dark. And I always have music on. I'm a musician. I love music. I always have loved music. I
Mhm.
turned the radio off, and I was having a spiritual dilemma. And at that moment, I'm going to use my exact words. So is it okay if I swear?
Yeah, that's fine.
Alrighty. Because I was driving on the highway, and I said, God, this seems like a big fucking joke. And those are my words. I said, it seems like a boy in China is told this, or a girl, and I'm told believe in this or you go to hell. And I just said, I don't get it. It seems like a big joke. And I kind of yelled out like that. And at that moment, a bright shining light shone in front of my car. And I'm just speaking of my experience, and you know, it is what it is. But I saw a bright shining light shine in front of my car. And then I just felt this wave of peace come over me, and I started bawling. And my next words were, God, I don't know what you are, but I'm going to stay open. Those are just my words. I don't know what you are, Lord, but I'm going to stay open. And from there, I intuitively let go of everything I thought I knew about God. I just let it all crumble. And this freaked my parents out because I wore it on my sleeves too. And I let go of everything I thought I knew about what life was, what God was, even Christianity, whatever I was raised with. I let it all go. And what I noticed at the end of that, when I let go of everything, there was one thing I couldn't change because it was just there, and it was a love for Christ.
Hmm.
I didn't have necessarily an inkling or affinity towards the religion, that we call of Christianity, but I had a love for Christ, a knowingness in my heart that Christ was legit. Not only legit, it was closer. It was like I couldn't conceptualize what Christ was, but I knew it was something profound and close and very near and dear to my heart, and it was just inherent. And that's all I gathered from that. After I let go of everything, I couldn't. That was something that couldn't be dropped. It was just there, part of my being, you know.
Wow.
And then,
So even then, this is like when you're like 20 years old or something.
yeah,
Wow. So very you were already contemplating very deep spiritual things now, and having synchronicities and experiences delight and seeing that's amazing.
yeah. I will say this, I wasn't a smart guy. I wasn't intellectual. I wasn't a high IQ gentleman. I wasn't really much of anything. I was just a dude going through life, kind of like just stumbling through life. But then, as I said, I felt like I sleptwalked through my first 18 years. It was because suddenly I was waking up so drastically that, looking back, it was like I would go home and I couldn't speak to my parents. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to say it. It didn't, whatever it was been before, it was like that. I didn't know. I didn't know what was happening to me, but I knew I loved it. I knew it was awesome, and I knew it felt like expanding. But the Ben had sleptwalked through life, I didn't really care for, and I didn't really identify with. You know what I'm saying? It was kind of like,
Yeah.
needs it. What is, I'm going forward.
Yeah, it's like I think Carl Jung also shares an experience when he was about a teenager that he felt like he was living in a almost like black and white world, and then he felt himself stepping out, and all of a sudden there was color, there was he became more aware, he became aware. I mean, he probably was aware before, but he became aware, you know what I mean? So it seems like a karmic event in a way, and you were
Probably, yeah,
yeah.
probably. And so, um, from there, excuse me, from there, yeah, it kind of like it opened a curiosity and an openness, and I had an extra kind of charisma about me after that, like a aliveness, just on fire for life, and I was happy every day. Like it was just I'd wake up in awe of life and just happy every day, and I love the college atmosphere, and I'd had people come up to me at the end of my college career being like, man, you were like always so damn happy. Like every day you're always happy. And my girlfriend was like, I've never seen you sad, man. But it was kind of like, it was just life was new. And I think when your consciousness shifts, it's indescribable, but it's also delectable is the word that comes to mind, like delicious. It's fascinating, it's new, and it's it's what you've been seeking for, didn't know it. We thought we were seeking for a new thing to make life awesome, but it was actually an internal change that showed the awesomeness there already was. And that's kind of, I think that was happening, and it did seem like karmic event because I didn't seek it. I didn't want to change. I wasn't seeking truth per se. It was just a dilemma presented itself, and then, but yeah. What was interesting about that? So that college, my girlfriend and I, sometimes when you think about these things and you haven't thought of them for a while, it like brings
Emotional.
back yeah, you know what I'm saying? Brings
Yeah.
back the space of it. But so her and I were part of the homecoming royalty of this small college. Not many kids in the class, and we were both likable people, I guess, apparently, because we're nominated for this thing. And I remember being on stage, and I did get crowned homecoming king of this college, which is a popularity thing. Kids vote, whatever. But I remember the moment the crown was being placed on my head. It was like from the moment I started to feel it hit my hair to the moment it actually touched my scalp, per se. It's like I went through a whole book of experience in that moment, in that split second. And what it was at that moment, I realized everything I'd sought for my whole life was approval. I had sought for approval, and I thought that's what I wanted, and I thought that's what was going to make me happy. I didn't know. That's what I was doing. But in that moment, it was like a karmic event where it was just like boom, and it was like, whoa. From the moment the crown was right here to the moment it was placed on my head, I was a different person. In this sense, a part of me had died. And the part of me that died was a major modus operandi of my being, which was going to be successful, have a great resume. People are going to look up to me. Life is awesome. This is easy. Life is good. Everybody loves me, that type of thing. And so it was wanting approval. And so in that moment, after that happened, I remember looking over. My girlfriend got the queen too, and I looked over at her, and I just remember thinking, "Who are you? Who am I? What is this?" You know, it was just this deep experience. Kind of funny. But
it kind of blissed you out. You had no context to put it. Yeah,
probably. And I remember being in the car afterwards and being like, and I just. This was my senior year, and I just was dying to who I was again, you know, to what I thought life was again, and life was bound to take on.
It sounds like the layers were peeling off. The layers of who you thought you were starting to peel off.
Yep. And then after I left there, I went to be a guide in the wilderness. I was like, before I do a job, I'm gonna be a guide in the wilderness. And it was we were taking church troops out and also people from around the world. Do you know Lake Superior? Have you heard of that?
Yes.
I think it's the biggest in the world, not the deepest, but the biggest as far as like, you know, width and all that stuff. And, you know, just it's like an ocean. But I was a guide on there, 30-foot canoes that held 16 people. And I would either lead in song and be rowing up front to keep people in rhythm, or I would be leading with a big oar in the back to steer us. And there's islands in Lake Superior called the Apostle Islands.
Wow.
And I would keep people on these islands, and we would set up camp. We'd cook meal. We'd break down into, you guys are going to cook. You guys are going to gather firewood. You guys are going to set up the tents. And at night we do these biblical lessons. Well, that summer blessed me so much, dude. Sleeping, you know, out under the stars. Oh man, do you do that at all? By the way, sleep outside.
I haven't slept outside in a long time. I did some camping some time ago, but it was nothing compared to what you're describing. It's just wow. Like,
Sure.
I think sleeping without a tent and just like out in the open in the summer when it's warm outside, that must be the best thing ever, especially if you can see the stars.
Yes. We would take inner city youth out too that had never seen the stars without streetlights. You know, and streetlights take away from the Well, it was just precious, and we made great food out there. And then at night we do Bible lessons or life lessons if they weren't a biblically based group. But it was the same lesson whether it was using the Bible or not. You know, just life stuff. It felt awesome. And when I left there that summer, people were like, "What are you going to do after this?" I said, "I don't know, but I can tell I'm going to write songs." I had tried to write a couple songs during my life prior to that, and it was a struggle. They weren't clear, but suddenly I wrote 100 songs in 3 months. They just started pouring out of me. Like I'd sit down and sometimes 2 would come out in one sitting, just effortless, not even conceptualizing about what I'm doing, just effortless, flowing. And so that kind of started, and I ended up joining a band. I started a modular housing business, got in a band, did a little bit of that, and then realized the limits of that and guys getting drunk and stuff. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna stop that. From there, I remember hanging out in churches a lot. And I actually, so my mother and father divorced, and my mom, who's kind of, I would say, very traditional Christian, like basically fundamental, you know. She took me by the advice of a friend after her divorce. Her friend's like, "You should go to Rhinebeck, New York, to this Omega Institute place." And it's like a spiritual type place where speakers come, you stay. And my mom had a little money then because she divorced my dad. And we went and got a nice room there and just wonderful vegetarian food, great people. And this was interesting because during the orientation of this place, during the orientation of this place, there was the lady giving the orientation had a picture. Actually, I got it right here. She had this picture. And I'd never seen it before. And anyways, I'm just sitting there in the audience. There's probably 15 of us or 14, something like that. And I'm looking up at this lady and she's just talking with this picture of Ramana Maharshi next to her. And suddenly I look at it and I'm like, I just start feeling this immense love for this guy. And I just feel like, whoa, this guy is beautiful. Oh, everybody else feeling this? And I went up to the teacher and I'm like, who is this guy? And I was just mesmerized. I was just in complete love. And I started having like just profound love, agape love with this guy. And I started having what I would call visions or dreams with Ramana. I remember one night I had a dream where I'm like, in the dream, it's like we're floating in the ether in the clouds, and Ramana's just like delighted with my delight, and he's delighted, and I'm delighted, and we're both delighted. And he's like, and it's wordless, but I'm like, and I tell him basically, can I touch your feet? Can I put them on my head? And he's just like, okay. And so I remember, and I put his feet on my head. And then the next day I read in the Ramana Maharshi, searching him online stories, he never let anybody touch his feet. So I felt really honored. It was just that moment of my life.
Was this like a dream, basically? And
yeah, this is just
wow.
a dream. And I guess. And but I felt this agape love for Ramana. And I've written a song about it. It's called something Ramana Maharshi. But anyways. But it's on Spotify and all that. But so I felt this love for him, and I still feel it to this day. This like non-separation type of agape love with Ramana, where it doesn't matter what I'm doing, what I have done. I just know I'm loved by Ramana, and that's all that matters. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
It's like this indescribable, timeless love that it's like that love for Christ was there. It's like that. It's just there. And there's nothing that can tarnish that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So that was your, besides Jesus Christ, which is your background. I think, was it Lutheran? Your
that was the
religious?
upbringing.
Okay.
Yep, that was the upbringing. And let me say this too. About the same time, similar time, I was painting a house. There's a statue of St. Francis and there's a statue of Mother Mary. And I said, St. Francis, I get you. I was like, this was actually, you know what? Okay, let me keep going with this. So I loved Ramana so much. So there was the Jesus thing, and then Ramana. I didn't know what Ramana was saying though. I'd open up his book at Barnes and Noble. It was this picture book. I would open this up at Barnes and Noble, and I just knew he was beautiful, but I had all this terminology, this Hindu stuff, Advaita, non-duality, was like blew my mind. It was like, what is that? But I would just but I wouldn't study it. I would just open up and expose myself to it. But I probably didn't have money to buy it, so I put it back in and drink my little espresso. Come back the next day, it was this children's theater turned into a Barnes and Noble. It was like blue skies and castles and dragons everywhere. It was beautiful. And I would pick up this book, and then after about a month or so, suddenly it just started clicking. Like I was just kind of like, I was like, okay, this is starting to make sense. Like I see what he's saying. He's pointing to something. He's pointing to something that my mind can't grasp. And it started to take a hold of me.
It's like you were by constant attention and looking at his picture, which means basically a reverence. You start to pick up on the energy field of it and starting to seep into it. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I think that's what happens also when people I think that's what happens with people when they really genuflect on a picture of Jesus for a long time. They start to feel experiences. I think in that movie Padre Pio, he was starting to feel some. I don't know how accurate that movie is, but there was always connected with genuflecting on the picture of Jesus or the cross, and then there would be stuff that would happen to him.
Yes. Yeah. Padre Pio, beautiful. Yeah, no doubt, man. Yeah, just exposure sometimes,
Yeah,
it's
so you were in a bookstore and you kept going back. You kept going back and looking at the book.
I just knew I loved Ramana, and so I started to get it via osmosis, and that was enough. Like the love I felt for him was enough, but I exposed myself, and then it kind of started to understand it. So it's like Yeah, it's like exposing yourself to the energy fields of whatever that Ramana, what Ramana is, which is, the self-realized being, in peace, yeah. So that inspired me so much. This was an interesting time in my life. I ended up working with an inventor, and um, so then I actually, after that, I did hear of Dr. Hawkins. So
Mm,
soon thereafter, probably within a year, within a year of hearing about Ramana. I lived in an old Victorian home at that point in my life, and musicians coming over were kind of living. I was working a little at that business, a modular housing business that my brothers and I created or started. And I'd bring my guitar to work though, and I'd write songs in between customers and stuff. It's so much fun.
right.
But yeah, so I met a woman on a plane. Oh, I met a couple on a plane. They were coming to speak in Minneapolis. And they said, you should come. I was just a wide open seeker at this point. And they're like, you should come hear us, come to this. It'll be fun. So I said, okay. So there I met this woman named Luana Lay. And she said, come stay with me in Tucson, Arizona sometime. That's what she said to me. She said, you can just maybe help me with my little business. She sold clays where people can take baths and clay baths, and supposedly it pulled out mercury and toxins out of their bodies. It was this clay from India, apparently. It's kind of a blur now, but I went and stayed with her, and
And this was an, sorry,
yeah, keep going, man.
this was an older woman. I imagine that she was in her 40s.
She was in her 50s or 60s.
Okay.
Yeah, she was a Midwesterner like me, and she'd come here for this to Minneapolis, St. Paul for this thing, this lecture or whatever you want to call it. And I haven't updated my computer for 365 days. All right. Or I
All
haven't,
right.
I haven't backed it up. It's always telling me I haven't backed it up. But so I went all the way to Tucson and stayed at her house. And while I was there, she said to me, yeah, my friends tell me this guy's awesome. She's like, I don't really know, but and I saw this book called I. So this would have been 2003, I think.
Right.
Yeah, 2003 it was. And I would constantly sneak into her room, hold it, grab the. I didn't know if she wanted me to take it or not. She didn't actually give it to me. She just showed it to me. So I'd sneak into her room because I couldn't not read it. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is everything I've ever wanted to know. He's talking about Krishna and Buddha and understanding the context of what these guys mean. Like how profound. I still, to this day, I'm just going to throw this out there. I believe what Doc has shared is the most profound information ever to humanity. He's summed up, to me, the big picture and context of what it means to be human in a way that is comprehensible, in a way that has encompassed all paths and religions, and is completely open and affirming. And wow. And that hit me in that moment, sort of. But I was still a young, dumb seeker, I was just wide open. And she had a video of Dr. Hawkins. It was the one Power versus Force one where he's got a ponytail.
Yeah. That I saw that. That was the first video I saw of Doc. Yeah.
Very poorly produced. It's great.
Yeah, I actually didn't have my first impression of him wasn't good. I thought to myself, I was the judgmental mind. I thought to myself, who is this man that's wearing these ugly pants,
Yeah.
But then for some reason I kept watching, and then the more he talked, the more I was like, that's interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting. That's interesting. And then before you knew it, I watched the whole thing, the whole video, which back in the day I pirated up from online, but it was and that started me.
Yeah. That's cool, man.
Yeah. So you were reading this. You were sneaking into her room, and at one point did she catch you at one point and be like, "What are you doing, Ben?"
I think she was sort of into different stuff at that time. So I think she had how Doc warned against secret prayers and that type of stuff, secret mantras. I mean, I think there was esoteric stuff too that she didn't want me to see. So, forgive me, Luana. Maybe I shouldn't be saying that, but I felt like I should have just asked her. Looking back, I haven't cognized or thought of this specific topic since it happened. To be honest, just in relation. 20 years later, but almost. But 18 or whatever. But yeah, so I went and watched that, and God bless Luana. Thank you, Luana. I don't know if you're still living. I haven't seen her or talked to her for a long time, but yeah, just so grateful for that happening. She was a very, very nice person and blessed me so much to let me come stay with her. And I did. I drove all the way to Tucson. It took like forever. It was like 24-hour driving, but like 3 days, you know, it was a long drive. But so I watched Power vs. Force video, and looking back, I didn't even realize this until like 8 years after it happened. But that night after I watched that video, and I didn't know if I liked him or not. Like I didn't know what this K testing thing was or whatever. And I wasn't sure for sure about Doc the person. When I read his written word, I was like, yeah. But when I saw him, I was like, I'm not sure. But that night, that day, that afternoon was right before dinner. I laid down and I felt like, I don't know how to explain it, but like light, like I felt like either I left my body or like light infused my body. You know, how can you say which it is? But you know, I just felt immersed in light, and I felt close to the light. I felt like one with it, like the mind stopped, and I just felt this. Like just everything became light. And I remember, you know, this happening, and then I remember at some point Lawana being like, "Time to eat dinner," and I was like, "Oh, oh, oh golly, I have to energize my body and go eat this dinner." And I'm like, I remember going down there and just being like, and I could barely, like, my body was just so relaxed. I was like, I got to chew this food. And then she was like, "Oh, can you help me with my computer?" I was like, "Oh, no." And I got to help her with her computer then. I was like, "Don't make me do that right now." But I did. And I didn't even realize at that moment it was after watching the doc video, but years later, after looking back, I remember it was after watching the doc video. I should also say I had met a psychic in Lake City, Minnesota that told me I was going to meet a man with gray hair. And she said that there's red rocks all around him. And she said, "I keep seeing you," she said, "with a tobacco pouch, and you're going to bring him tobacco." She said, "I don't know why." But it turned out Doc rolled cigarettes and grew his own tobacco and smoked tobacco.
Yeah. He
So
loved organic tobacco. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So this was, I don't know if a lady told me that after I met Doc. So what happened, Luana, there was like 2 teachers we could go to, and I didn't have much money, and Doc was cheaper. It was an all-day lecture, and there was food included. It was at a hotel, 2003 at the Hilton or something, one of the hotels, Radisson, whatever, in Sedona. And so I went and saw him, and Luana and I drove up from Tucson to Sedona to see this Doc guy. I was like, yeah, let's go see him. At this point, I still didn't really care. You know, I wasn't really into Doc.
Was it at the famous the center that had like the stripes? And was it that one? No, it was a different one.
Nope. In
Okay.
2003, he must have been doing it at a hotel. I just remember it was a big auditorium type, like a hotel, very big boxy thing.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
we went to the room to eat lunch. It was a big, nice big lunch. It was a lunch and all day lecture for like $170, I think it was. And you know, I thought that was reasonable. This other lecture that we could have went to was only 3 or 4 hours, didn't include a meal, and was like almost $400. And back then, that's a lot, man.
Oh my gosh, that's
It was a
yeah.
lot of fun. But,
Who was the other teacher? Just out of curiosity.
you know, I don't want to say,
Okay.
but
Okay.
I will say this. I will say this. Kind of quasi new age, science new age, you know, that type of thing.
Okay. Got it.
Maybe I'll tell you afterwards. Yeah, but you know, it's pointless to say these people's names because you know, what's going to avail from that? From my perspective, I have to share what's going to bless, and I don't want to give energy to that which will not bless others, in my view. And we have to be true to ourselves, right? So
Yeah. Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Respect that 100%.
Lawana and I are sitting in this lecture, and I forgot my wallet. And so I went out to the car to get my wallet, and I came back, and as I was walking back in the room, there was Doc walking around the rooms, and he stopped and looked at me from across the room, and he stopped and squinted his eyes, and I stopped, and I was like, it was jolting, you know? You know, it was a jolting experience. I just remember like kind of jumping, and it was fascinating. And so yeah, there was that, and then we left, and I wasn't for sure, like I wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna study with this guy or really anything. But at that same time, my father and uncle bought a home outside of Phoenix, Arizona, in a town called Fountain Hills, and it worked out perfect because I could be a hippie. I had real long hair. I
Yeah.
could wear yeah. And here's what happened. Let me tell you this. So I did want to go see this guy again. I was really getting into his books, and I wrote him a letter. I don't know why. I still remember. Well, I better not say his address. I know it by heart because it was in the back of the early editions of the books.
Right.
IDI was my book, man. That book changed my life. It was everything. So from that time until, and I went and worked with this an inventor. I was reading this book, IDI. I read it 6 times in a row. It was fascinating. And
Wow. Six
yeah,
times.
and so he had his home on Keller Lane, Doc did, and I sent him a letter, and I just said, I'm working with this inventor, and with all this profound, amazing stuff, like we were meeting profound, amazing people. They were sitting across from the table from this guy, and I thought to myself, I like this guy. Now suddenly he looks up at me and says, thank you. We were just meeting interesting people and inventions and all this stuff. And I wrote Doc a letter. I'm like, isn't the world an illusion? Like I think this inventor like wants to kind of like help the world and save the world. But I was obviously feeling the pull towards being more on the spiritual path, like
Right. Like
something.
Ramana Maharshi, the world you see is an illusion anyway. Like that
Yeah.
kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I wrote Doc a letter, and he did respond, and it was weird. It was like I got that letter back, and it seemed like a day. I was like, how do I always already have a reply from this guy? But who knows? It was probably just a Jedi mind trick of that time, maybe whatever. But I remember Doc's words saying, I think you summed it up well when you said the world is an illusion. He said, how you choose to spend this path is up to you. Enjoy the trip, something like that.
Wow.
Something like enjoy your life. How you choose to spend it is up to you. He didn't tell me what to do or whatever. He just affirmed what I had said and my own. And it came on this. It came on this little paper in my IM that I got. So
I love it.
this is a letter. This is Doc's stationery. See, it says from the desk of Dr. David Hawkins. This is
Yes.
Dear Benjamin, thank you for your letter. Follow the specific steps to enlightenment described in Transcending Levels and Devotional Non-Duality books. Best wishes, Dr. David Hawkins. Beautiful
And
man.
this was what year? Must have been 2006 or later.
Yep, 07, March 9th of 07.
Yep.
Yep.
There you go.
And then I remember at Prescott once, Doc had affirmed or confirmed with K testing that St. Francis of Assisi's stigmatas were real. And I think St. Francis was the first one to get them, but there was an actual like city type thing. And I asked, and I had this beautiful stationery, and I'm like, Doc, would you sign this for me? And he looks at Susan. Is it okay to sign this? And he tested it strong, so he signed it. He signed it for me. This little bubbling seeker, And so yeah, that was sweet of him. And so I got that letter back from him, and then shortly thereafter, I decided I'm gonna go see this Doc guy more. I really like him, and I went and stayed at my dad's and uncle's retreat home, or whatever you want to call it, a vacation home in Phoenix. And I remember thinking, I'm gonna go see Dr. Hawkins. And I signed up for this lecture. And I remember saying to myself, gosh, I want to make a good impression on this guy. So I said to myself, should I shave my beard or not? Should I wear shorts or pants? Should I wear sandals or shoes? And I was thinking to myself these things. And so eventually I just did what I did, probably just long-haired, hippie-looking guy in shorts and sandals. But I went and saw Doc. And at the end of the lecture, I was sitting right on the aisle, like kind of towards the front, but like a third of the way back maybe. And at the end of the lecture, Dr. Hawkins walks down through the middle of the audience, and he walks past me. And then he starts saying, why would a teacher care if you have a beard or not? Why would a teacher care if you wear pants or shorts? Why would a spiritual teacher care if you wear sandals or shoes? And then he stopped by one person in the whole place, me. And he put his hand on my shoulder. He looked into my eyes and smiled. And I'm just like, whoa.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
That was amazing.
Was that part of the recorded lecture, or was that like in between the
Sure it is. I'm sure it is. I
Yeah.
have no clue. I haven't seen that video, I've never really seen myself with Doc except one video, because I was a person that would go up and ask questions. Not everybody
Right.
did. There is
Right.
one that has circled around a little bit. It's not on YouTube, but it has been on Facebook. and we can talk about that one too. But yeah, should we talk about Doc a little bit?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask that. That's what happened on your only second lecture. Is that what happened? Like Doc,
Yes.
just wow.
And I
That's
decided I want to go see this guy. And now, at this time, I had an understanding concept of this guy, and I liked him, and I wanted to be around him. You know what I mean? Like,
right,
whatever he's got, I want. You know what I'm saying?
right.
That was a feeling. I want to serve this guy, and I look up to him, and he affirmed Ramana Maharshi, which was like, that's what I knew to be true, and he affirmed Jesus Christ, and I thought that's what I know to be true, and you know what I'm saying? And I liked what he had to say, and I liked, yeah, just, yeah, I wanted to be close to Doc.
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
his work is profound. For me, he brought me back to Jesus because I went to a bit of a agnostic phase, a
yeah,
little bit,
yeah,
and he recontextualized the religions for me,
hmm, yep,
and also the social commentary as well, which was
yes.
amazing. I don't know how your university was. Probably not as political back in the day, because sounds like it was early 2000s, right? When he went to
Yeah, this was in
university,
like
to
'03.
college.
Yeah, '03, '04. Yeah, I'm making
Yeah,
an espresso, by the way. I've had this
nice.
machine for 10 years, and it's my birthday this week, and my mom just sent me these Nespresso pods, and which is, I got them in this thing, and what a
Right.
blessing, and it's a little joy for me. So this is gonna be a little noise for a moment,
It's all right.
and we're gonna
So,
rock. But yeah, keep going, brother.
where was I forget. But
So
this is
so
very interesting.
so
This
in
is
2003, 4, Doc, was you're saying how he wasn't as political really then. Per se. He wasn't speaking on those things as such. I think he would at that point in his Doc's career in his lecturing, he was really sharing spiritual truth. Like the titles of all the lectures are like Advaita, Pathway to God Through Heart, that kind of stuff. I feel like devotion,
yeah. I
but he
think
wasn't commenting and calibrating things as much. That came later. That
right.
came,
He did a little bit of commentary. I remember in the 2002 lecture series,
yeah,
he'd mention Bin Laden, and he'd mention the IRS, the government, and he'd say, I remember him once saying that in the government, it's just functionary. It's just not nothing more than that. So I'm doing my job, and you can't fire me because I'm doing my job, kind of thing. It's very kind of
yeah, right.
there's no, it's almost like you're like being a robot, but you can't fire the person for not being kind, because that's not part of the
Yes,
job description.
right. Yeah,
And
yeah, 200, 200 Z. Yeah,
he
yep.
talked about the complexity of the government, that it might become so complex that at one point they're just gonna stop. Which I thought was interesting.
Right.
the
Yeah.
the tax code, tax lawyers, and everything, like the amount of laws they have to know. And anyway, okay, I'm
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
digressing a
He
little
did
bit.
not. Yep, that's okay. We can go there. Let's. So yeah, at that time it was more like, I do feel like at that time, yeah, it was just strict like spiritual, like boom. It was a deeper one pointedness of spiritual reality in my view. The
Yeah,
2002 lecture series in particular, and then it trickled, and then I think it took on a little more form with, especially with Truth versus Falsehood when that came out. In what's the other one? Reality, spirituality, modern man.
yeah, that came in 2007, I think. Yeah, yeah,
Yep. Everything Doc wrote is his gift to humanity, in my view. That's the way I look at it. Everything he did, I conceptually, I believe that Doc saw humanity as himself because he identified with the source of life, which is consciousness, and it was his gift of love to us. And he never marketed. He didn't try to change anybody. He just said, "Here it is," and it has its own energy, and it's going to
mm,
do what it's going to do. And I believe it's extremely powerful and gracious gift, and from the love of God ultimately through Doc.
yeah. I think a lot of people. I've given like the book "Letting Go" to a lot of people, but not a lot of people will read it, because I have a theory, or maybe a hypothesis, that if you're not meant to read it or get it. You're just not. It's just not a thing you can force upon people. It's like you were ready, like you were already the apple that was already on the ground, like ready to be picked.
Ready to
So you
fall
weren't,
down on the branch. Yeah.
yeah. But others might not be there, but like, well, let me just explore the world more, or let me do this, or I think karma has a in maybe in the Western mind the term karma, it doesn't, it's not really understood as much, but I think that karma just means readiness, like
Yeah.
the
I
saying, when the teacher
yeah.
is ready, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear, right?
I think karma is the perfection of what is.
Mm.
It's like if we're only to sit back and accept life exactly as it is. In other words, karma is life is perfect. It's in perfect balance. It's always perfect from moment to moment. That is karma, including when something seemingly negative happens and something seemingly positive happens. It's perfect. And that's karma, you know?
Yeah, for me it's hard to accept some things in the world
Sure,
sometimes.
sure.
But it's very helpful when like, because you have an understanding of um, I think the benefit of being in the Ramana Maharshi um, disciple before Doc is that you have an understanding that the world is an illusion, and it's such a high teaching already,
Yeah.
and then you go
Yeah.
straight to Doc. It's amazing. I
Yeah,
think.
Doc. I would actually get annoyed at Doc because I wanted him to be more one pointed, to be honest with you. I didn't realize what Doc's position was, which is he's teaching to everybody, where Ramana was just teaching to a small fraction of the population, you know?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I didn't recognize that at the time. I'm like, come on, Doc, give me the goods. You know what I mean? I was that's a lot of ego, but that's what I felt at the time.
I was at a lecture, and I think it was October 2010 when he made everybody in the that was in the audience promise they're gonna do a Course in Miracles.
Mm.
And before that, I had tried one time and failed. I think I did 150 or so, and yeah. And then I
Cool.
asked Doc about it as well. I asked about procrastination. He says,
Yeah.
well, maybe you can't. Maybe you'll be half saved,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
he had a wonderful sense of humor, Doc, as well. People don't realize, like, from reading books, like, books are great. Like, I have one here, and by the way, I also have one of, there you go.
That's awesome. That's
that is
great.
that's amazing, but sorry, I forget what I was saying now.
Huh. You know, if you ever forget what you're saying, just say God, because ultimately that's what you're talking about.
Yeah,
And then be
God.
silent. I'm just kidding. Yeah. But yeah. um, but yeah, bro. Uh so let me see if I can retrace the steps of what we were talking about.
Oh yeah, okay. I can't rewind the tape, so it's basically I think I was talking about, like, how Doc, um let's go there. How because you were talking earlier about
Yeah.
how Doc went into worldly stuff as well. So he didn't just go
Yeah.
one point in his mind, he went into
Yeah.
other more worldly stuff. And I think for me, for some reason, that attracted me
Sure.
more at times as well. So
Sure.
I have a theory, and I don't think I've talked about it on the podcast, because you said interesting thing that Doc was for everybody. So
Mhm.
some people discover him nowadays, now that he's passed away, and they're Doc students, which I feel like is, we had such a privilege being there. I mean, I'm from Europe. I'm from Central Europe, and I saw him like 4 or 5 times. I think it was
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but a lot of people have a vested interest in the political. So I have a friend of mine that whose dad, I'm not gonna mention their names, but his dad is not really actively following. I mean, reading Doc, I guess, anymore because he thought that Doc was a Republican, and
Sure. Yeah.
I don't know. Like, so what do you say to people?
He might have had a slight Republican bent at that time,
Yeah,
and might have seen how the left was ideologies were infiltrating universities a little bit, and that could worry him. If it was the other way around, he might lean a little left. Who knows? But yeah, he might have been just as a man. Doc was also just an intellectual man too. You know, so yeah, he shared from his experience as well. Like these books don't calibrate as high as the other books. There's a reason, because he's talking about form, and it's written from the perspective of just extreme intelligence, in my view, um, of what human life is, modern man, and so it is from a different context. And I think his job was sort of pointing out some of the errors that were happening, and I was experiencing them. I think I leaned slightly left earlier in my life. I'm a musician and artist, and we tend to lean a little left sometimes. I've been sort of just like, ooh, just like not interested in what I've seen happen, and looking back at some of the ideologies, which belief systems can be like viruses and can hurt people from within,
yeah,
and
that's true.
I think
That's
Doc
true.
saw that. I think it was out of love. He was like, gosh, this could lead humans down the rabbit hole you know, that can be painful to return from. So let me just delineate this. Let me just point this out and see what happens. Whatever. But yeah,
Yeah. Like, I think I remember now what I was saying before. So, given that Doc's work is for meant for everybody, so there's people that are more interested in the devotional stuff,
yeah,
all that, and there's people that are also taken by the intellectual. Like he highly recommended the great books of the Western world. And if you see his references in the book, it's like even that orange book that you have there, it's just impressive. Like you have so many books, and
yeah,
yeah, it's a little something for everybody. And
absolutely,
I
absolutely.
remember one time there was somebody that came up to him and asked him about, uh, I'm a student. I'm gonna read these books. No, I think it was about the books of the Western world, and the student's like, "Well, Marx is on the list as well." And a doc is like, "Well, if you become Marxist, then just go to Russia or something."
Yeah, yeah. Something cool about the great books. I never saw this during Doc's life, but him and Susan in a lecture. I don't know how I came across it. Maybe it was something you posted or something, or somebody posted. Whatever. But Doc said that, what's that university? And she goes, oh, that one in Minnesota. That's where I'm from. There's this university. I played college football and actually played football against this team called St. John's University. And it's a
Yeah,
very old university, but that's the last university Doc said, or at least I might be misquoting, but I believe he said they're still teaching the great books there. And they're really not teaching it really anywhere else. That was my understanding,
yeah,
but I could be
yeah, yeah. There's only a few of them that do
okay.
teach. That have the great books curriculum, and that's he recommended. There was a college guide that Doc recommended as well, which unfortunately they don't publish anymore. They used to publish it every year and update it, which was really cool.
Yeah.
um, I want to ask you about okay, I touched upon a little bit, of course, the miracles. Is this something that you went into as well?
I did. And I went into it. I, I don't know how many times I've done it. I'd have to calibrate, but a lot of, I probably completed it 5 or 6 times, but I probably started it and stopped it. And again, I don't know the exact facts of how many times I've done it, but maybe a dozen times. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, I've started a lot, but yeah, this last year I did the whole thing, and I put it to music. So yeah, I decided to a friend. I had done the first 50 lessons and put it to. I was looking for my guitar; it's in its case, but and put it to music because I wanted to spend time with that energy, which is the enlightened 600 kind of energy. I wanted to really imbibe in that energy of the course, and so I was like, I'm gonna put it to music. That's what I do when I really want to be with something, it's like I want to make love to it. I want to be with it all the time. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
so I put music to it. And then I was doing the course with a couple friends, a married couple from Rochester, New York, and they were like, "Hey, Ben, would you ever consider putting more lessons to the of the course to music?" So I said, "All right." All somebody has to do. I'm the type. I'm just like, I'll do it. I'm the yes man kind of in that way. Like if I can be of service in some way, I'm usually a pretty big yes man. As long as I know it's glory in God. And so, anyways, next thing I know, I'm doing it a song before each lesson it comes to a close. I'm putting that subset into music, and then end up being 21 songs. And I did a whole, and I released it in January 6th, I believe. It's on Spotify and all that. It is a cool thing if you just want to stay with the words, and hopefully you find the music palatable. But for me, I don't want to read all the pages anymore. I'm tired of all the verbiage. Like, of course, Americans can be so damn wordy. I just want to be with the essence of it, and I just want to be with the energy of it, and I just want to be with it. Ultimately, as Doc had told me, it's about surrendering your perception and asking the Holy Spirit for a miracle to
Yeah.
replace your perception. And so I just wanted to be with that, and so I put the whole thing. So I've done the course a lot, and it sounds like you've done it to less than 150. Is that right?
I've completed it
Oh, you
three
have.
times, I
Oh,
think.
you
Yeah.
have. Very good.
Yeah.
Good. Good man.
I think it was I was at the lecture, and this guy was saying how he was doing a 12-step group plus. He was doing the Course in Miracles the second time around, and I just thought to myself, well, in an inspirational kind of way, well, if he can do it, I can probably do something like that as well. Like it inspired me, and then I saw that it was nothing special. It just required a commitment.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times, if you start a course with me, especially the first time, it will seem like, what am I saying? Like, I don't understand this. But
Yeah.
I think you,
Totally.
I
I
mean,
relate.
when I first started it, I think it was like I did 10 lessons, and I was like, I have no, and then I dropped it for a few months because it was just like I had
Yeah.
no idea what I was reading.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had no
Absolutely.
context. But then once you do it, and then once you go the second time around, it starts to make more sense. You're like, ooh, yeah, actually, I get this.
Come at you different. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also when I first started it, I did it intensely. Though I finished at 150, that's when I started to feel some kind of energy, and I was like, what is going on?"
Yeah.
So for me, I think it was a Course in Miracles that started to do some to
Cool.
my energy field. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. It started to have an effect on you. It's like Doc talked about what do you call that when you be in the energy field of a teacher? You kind of pick up on their there's a name for that. Um, you start to become like something by exposure to it. But
Well,
you're
by osmosis.
of
You mean
course this is
that? Yeah.
talked about too. Um, but yeah, we start to pick up on the energy field of the course, and it starts to become a part of us, right? And it's not a cause effect thing. It's not like because I read it and said these words, I am understanding it and changing and growing. That's not how it happens. It's like it's we can't make ourselves change, right? It's a grace thing. And so by constant exposure and presenting ourselves to this, it's like we're receiving the energy of that. And it's prior to mind, in my view, and change happens, and
Yeah.
it's by grace, I believe.
Another thing that I thought in my life is still to this day really beneficial is the 12-step movement. And I've been into several different groups, and considering some more now, actually, as we spoke
Good for
before.
you. Good for you, brother. Oh man, can't speak enough about the 12
I
steps.
mean, I went. One of these days, somebody will probably put it on YouTube where I asked Doc about the porn.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people struggle with it, and I on and off still
Although,
to
yeah.
this day. Even though I asked them, I don't know. It was like it must have been 10 years ago at least.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so even though like a lot of stuff intellectually, like I know I've read Doc's work, but it's something about so practical about doing 12-step
Yeah.
groups and doing the steps, right?
Yes, yes. Nisargadatta once said the world is full of loops, and all we're trying to do is straighten our hooks, right? So like, so we don't get caught on things because there's all these energy fields, and we have tendencies, in our being, and so stuff like that can happen. And to change, sometimes we need, to transform shame, we need the energy of others. We need to be able to speak our truth so we can come out of the shame and be open to God's grace in that way. And Jesus says, where there are two or more are gathered, I am there. There is some power when we open up to others. And like, same thing with the Catholic Church and confession. There's something about, confessing to God is one thing, but you can still kind of hide. And but when you're open in front of all these other, like, let's just take a 12-step meeting, for example. When you're just open with all these people and being honest with yourself, whew, you're unloading some weight that is in our unconscious, becoming into our conscious, and then letting it go. There's the compassionate framework there, so that we can get honest with what we don't want to look at about ourselves. It's
Yeah.
really hard. I tried to do the 12 steps in 2005, I think, yeah, or six, and I tried to do an inventory myself, and it was painful, bro. It was like I hadn't looked about these things about my life, and then I looked back years later, and I just laughed at the things that were hard for me to be painful about. It was no big deal, but you shouldn't try to do it by yourself. You need the energy and love and acceptance of others. We bless each other.
Right. I think in a group energy, like we said before, you get some things by osmosis and little things here and there, and you get, and also if you go a while and if you go to the same group, you start to see that some people are changing, and that's really like, wow. When you see people change, that's a miracle in itself. When it's a like they look the same, maybe they look about the same, but they're not the same person at all.
What comes out of their mouth is like, whoa. When they share, they're like, you'll hear other 12 steppers, even if you're new to a group, you'll hear other 12 steppers say, wow, I can't believe this is you. Like, this is amazing. You're not the same person. You hear people say that. So I was raised in a home with a lot of alcoholism. And so, uh, you know, I wanted to work through the effects of growing up. Like, to me, that was just normal growing up. So there was a group that I could join to help heal from trauma, from alcoholism, and that, called Adult Children of Alcoholics. And let me just say, man, wow, what a blessing. I'm so grateful that a friend told me that existed. And I went through about 7 trauma releases, and like what I consider like where like boom, things I wasn't even really conscious about, with people in small groups, um, within a span of like 8 months. And then I got to see dynamics and why I was orienting in relationships the way I was, trying to heal my mother, like stuff like that, um, and just God bless our parents, and now many of us are parents. It's like we're playing roles, and there's these karmic operations in play. These things are patterns, and it takes tremendous, grace and insight and love to heal these things. But what a blessing, the 12-step movements. God bless Bill W. My goodness. I mean, for that grace to happen in our society, think of the millions of people that have been blessed by it, who would be in otherwise not good members of society.
Right. Probably tens of millions now at this point.
It's amazing. Yeah. God bless the USA for that.
God bless
If only
United
for
States of
that.
America. There.
If only for Bill W. He's blessed the world so much. My goodness. Yeah.
Yeah. And the funny thing is that at that time when Doc was practicing on Long Island, Bill W. was also hanging about in New York, and there was Helen Schumann, I think was her name. She was the scribe of Course in Miracles, and apparently they all knew each other too, which is just amazing. Like New York in the '60s must have been
Yeah. Huge meeting of the minds there. My goodness.
yeah, and
Yeah.
then when you think about all the people that came out of New York, especially well,
Fascinating.
worldwide, just from America, and one of the things that I really liked about Truth versus Falsehood was the traits about Americans and the I don't remember any of them right now. Actually, it's been a while since I read that. But
Yeah,
when I read it, I was like, wow, this is so true. There's something more to America than people just watching
yeah,
movies can see.
yeah.
I
Misleading.
remember when I was working in Wyoming, and this German lady told me that she's like, I don't really get the politics, but the people here are so kind. She said that one time she had an injury and she couldn't leave the hotel room much, and somebody underneath the hotel room left a lot of money, just anonymous, just came and with a put a bunch of money in the envelope and left it underneath
Yeah.
her hotel door, just
Wow.
like that.
Wow. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I worked at Enchantment Resort in Arizona, and I was a bellhop, and I waited on a lot of famous people, and it was awesome. And I don't know why you just yeah, because what you just said it jogged my mind. But actually, this is kind of a cool tidbit. Dr. Hawkins would come there with Dr. Hollenbach. It was his friend who had passed away before Doc did, but they'd come out and do the brunch on Sundays at this Enchantment Resort. It's a miniature Grand Canyon, just so beautiful, and it was so cool that the Doc would come out there too. But Leonard Nimoy was one guy. Spock, he plays Spock,
Okay.
in
Okay.
Star Trek. He was a gracious human being, man. Beautiful human being. Paul McCartney, gracious human being. But these guys aren't. I don't even know if they're from the United States. But what a beautiful thing to see to see the beauty of people outside of the television that were authentic and real. And I met some celebrities that wouldn't really that would just look over my head and some that were just like we're exchanging our phone numbers, that type of thing. And I met some that would tip the owner of the Indianapolis Colts. You'd bring him a newspaper and give you $100 bill. It was like that kind of stuff. I made a lot of money in tips, thank God, because I was this little spiritual student, and I don't know how I could have made a living out there, but I was happy to serve people, and so I would do okay. I could buy my books and food and lectures and all that stuff, and live in Sedona, and have a lot of fun doing it. But yeah, your point though was more just about America and the values of America. I think is what you're getting at ultimately.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there is a great value system in America. I think that the bread and butter of America. But I kind of feel like it's everywhere too. But I think America also has had this one nation under God thing, which is ultimately beautiful, um, and powerful. And Doc said a lot of power of the United States does come from its Declaration of Independence and that type of
Yeah.
stuff.
It's
You know,
also on the money. In God we trust. There's not.
dude, in the dollar bill, y'all. Yeah. It says one in God we trust right next to each other in the $1 bill. One God we trust. I mean,
Right.
man, right there.
Let's talk about a little bit about grounding and being in the physical realm, because I feel like a lot of dark students, and sometimes I was that myself, where we kind of
Yeah,
neglect the physical
yeah,
and just go for the the high calibration or whatever.
yeah,
And so, what's your
yeah.
thoughts about that?
Yeah, I'm a great guy to talk to because my head's always in the damn clouds. But let me just say this: I struggled with that dilemma, and I wanted to experience the bliss of God so bad, and I would experience times in a little higher state of consciousness. For me, just speaking about earlier in my life, when I'd be like, I just want to stay there, and I hadn't dealt with my trauma. I hadn't dealt with my I don't even know how to say it, but let's just say, the pain and the unconscious terror that I was carrying about myself. I hadn't dealt with that. So I would have times where it would come up and whack me, and would take me out. And so I was having this dichotomy in my being for so long where I was like going and seeing Doc and being devotional. And I'll just say this, spending time around Doc sometimes, like it really so first things first, when you're in Doc's presence a lot of time, and in the presence of any great being, your questions start to disappear, right? Because you're picking up on their energy, and it's becoming a part of you. And what's happening is that the question dissolves, and that totally happens. So I would experience that around Doc, and then after I'd go home for a few days, and I'd be like wiped out and raw, and it was hard for me to exist, and it'd be painful. And then I'd come back, and I was ready to kind of want to go bliss out again, but it would take some time.
Right.
So I do feel this is important, to be balanced on the spiritual path. Like love your body, take care of it, eat healthy food and work out. Like I've had to go back and do these things. 12 step, to me, the best way to stay grounded on a spiritual path is to do a 12 step. You can't but be humbled. You can't but be grounded. You can't but get very honest about all aspects of your life. Just the simple 10 step, a nightly inventory. If you do that alone, my goodness, like that's going to keep you grounded. It's going to keep you humble, and it's going to keep you real. That step alone, let alone they're all beautiful. This is coming to mind in this moment, so I'm just going to share it. But I've listened to a lot of testimonies through the years, definitely up there in the hundreds, if not thousands because I love testimonies. They're so raw, they're so beautiful, they're so real to me. And I find
Oh,
them
you're talking about the 12-step testimonies, right? Okay.
There's podcasts you can listen to.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
thousands out there, right? About listening to them all. I love them. I heard a Native American man, this has probably been in the 80s or something, give a testimony. And he went into this has probably been in Montana or Wyoming, somewhere around where you were, I think. And he went into a 12-step group, and the natives have struggled with alcoholism, I believe. And he went into this 12-step group, and this white guy came up to him. He's like, was kind of tough with him. But what the white gentleman was doing was trying to help this guy. This guy had a little anger and hatred towards the white man, right? And he was trying, so he's like, I forget the words he used, but basically he was kind of being a little stern with him right away. But what he was trying to do was to get him to trust him so that he might walk the 12 steps. This guy life was just in disarray. He was a total full blown alcoholic. This Native American gentleman, his life was just in the pits. I mean, nothing doing. And he ended up somehow forming a bond with this guy and a love with this guy. And this guy ended up bringing the 12 steps into the tribe. And when he showed the 12 steps to the tribal elders, the elders looked at the 12 steps, studied it for a little while, and were silent. And they said, this is one thing that the white man has perfected, that the white man has perfect, these 12 steps. And I agree, man. Like, what a blessing. If there is a recipe for human disaster, you're going to find the antidote in the 12 steps. I believe that. They're so
Yeah.
transformative, so yeah, what a blessing. So thank God for that.
I think in that orange book, the Reality, Spirituality, Modern Man, Doc calibrated that the 12-step movement has the best positive effect on the world, more than the bigger religions, in the world. So that's, or no, he was hold on, he was doing for America, but I can imagine that's similar for other countries.
Yeah,
But
there is AA in India and stuff like that. There's not very many, but there's usually in the bigger city like Chennai or whatever, Mumbai, there's going to be a AA group or two, but there's not many, but I think these things are happening. And I
yeah,
think a lot of people all over the world, they're like, how do I deal with this sexual addiction? How do I deal with this alcoholism? How do I deal with this? A million other things. And being that the world is so small now, if they're talking to somebody from the West, they're going to be like, what'd you do? They're like, I did the 12 steps. They're like, well, what is that? How do I find it? And so, the stuff is starting right all over. And I'm grateful for that. I'll just leave it at that. But yeah, just grateful for that. Yeah. But that stuff to me is going to keep you grounded, because if you only want to keep your head in the clouds and seek the presence of God, but not deal with your pain and suffering in the lower chakras, let's just call it. That's what I tend to call it. I don't know if that's accurate assessment, but that's what I call it. Then you're going to be imbalanced, and if you're imbalanced, you're going to be prone to make mistakes.
right.
And so it takes maturity and discipline to be balanced in this world and be a spiritual student. Yeah, I believe.
In that Oprah interview, Doc said, I think that this might be one of the few times he said it, but he said you first have to master the world before you transcend it.
Yeah.
And this kind of goes in line with some other times he spoke about not skipping steps. He didn't just mean the 12 steps, he meant lessons in life and so forth. Because as somebody that studied doc, you know that there's been a lot of gurus and stuff that have fallen, a lot of spiritual teachers that were at one time high, but then fell. And my hypothesis is that some of them fell because they had chinks in the armor, that
Of course.
they skipped a step, they went ahead, and it is difficult. And I think for me, mastering the world, and that parable from the Bible about not hiding your talents, but bringing them out in the open and working with them and trying and making more. I think there's something, I don't know why, but it's something that's calling me for that. So that's what I mean. It's so fascinating that Doc made the work accessible for a wide variety of people, because you have somebody like us at more devotional path, all that. But
Yeah.
going back to the mastering the world, what is your opinion on that? What he said?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember when I was younger, I used to sort of wish things away and I'd hope they'd go away and I'd avoid them. And then sure enough, they'd always come back and smack me, you know? Um, yeah, my life is my gift of love to God, right? So if God is omniscient, all knowing, all present, all powerful, then there's nothing, like every hair in your head is counted. Not a bird falls without his knowing. All these things. God is my refuge, you know, all these things. If that is true for me, if I align with that and that is truth, then I believe as a consequence of that, I will be led to perfect this instrument in fully, fully, and that will involve getting extremely honest, you know, with my imperfections, my shortcomings, my pains, my traumas, my um, judgments, my everything like that, and so that is part of the spiritual process. And I think sometimes, especially with Advaita or non-duality, we like to really glue onto the concepts, and then from them we think we're doing something or learning something, but there's a doc student that reached out to me and opened up to me about 8 months ago, and we speak on the phone about one day a week, one night for a little while, and I basically told him, uh, dude, all these concepts are great and it's fun to talk about God, but I said it doesn't mean anything if you don't get your life in order. If you don't wake up in the morning, clean your room, make your bed, and smile at people you see during the day, all these concepts mean nothing. So like get your life in order and stuff, and then worry about transcending, you know, the void. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like
simple kindness, like start with the basics. Yeah, I get it. I get that.
be what you are, start where you are, do start with that which is in front of you, love your family. I mean, Mother Teresa talked about that, and it's so true. Because we can get imbalanced and sometimes carry a glamour of specialness for ourselves because we understand works and concepts, and especially you know, if you have a type of mind that can memorize or take in a lot of the teachings, you might think you actually know something, you know, and yeah, it's just not true.
Right, that's the downside of the intellect and the reason, especially if you've read a lot and then yeah, and you're really
Mhm.
smart and everybody tells you you're smart. That kind of,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's like, ooh, I can manipulate symbols wonderfully. I can tell you all about it. It's like it doesn't go anywhere, you know. But humility, in my view, humility and knowing that you don't know anything is worth its weight in gold. You know, in other words, it's worth a lot more than understanding a thousand spiritual concepts. You know what I mean? Or memorizing. You know,
Right,
just knowing that you don't really know shit. Like you know,
right.
like you're just a beginner right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, one time Doc told me that it's my will when I decide not to do like a Course in Miracles, something like that. So one of the he gave me two remedies. I'm still struggling to reconcile that. So he first told me to develop an iron will, but then he told me to do the third step, basically to surrender my will and my life over to the care of God as I understand Him. Um, I'm trying to do. Working on the third, but also the iron will. I have no idea how to tackle that yet, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's something that I will figure out, and God will help me figure out. Actually,
Amen.
that's it. All right. Anything else that we want to talk about before we close? Let me see.
I would just want to say, like, bless you, man, for doing this thing, and it's cool that you're doing this podcast, and that you're, it seems to me that the only intention or overarching essence of you doing this is to be a blessing. So I just wanted to say, awesome, brother. Like, I think it's great that you're doing this, and you're using your gifts and skills that you have to do the things that you can do, which is this, and it's a vessel. It seems to me that it's a vessel for your further learning too and contemplation, and to spread your love and joy and that of your guests with your followers, and that's a cool thing. So good on you for doing this, bro.
Thank you, brother. I think that means a lot to me. I think my overall
Yeah.
intention is to have different positive people talk about
Yeah.
different viewpoints. Everybody's got a different take on it, and I think sometimes when you hear something said in a different way from
Yes.
somebody else that you're more ready, something
Yeah.
clicks in your mind, and you're like, I get that. Like all you need is that split second where you're starting to get something, and you're like, yeah, I get it. I get it. That's it. That's all you need.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I sort of feel like one thing that I would add or say here at the end, um, you know, I don't know if it's something we maybe we could do it a different time, or right now, or I'm just throwing this out there as a potential possibility, but to actually do some experiential letting go. That's something that I enjoy doing, and that's something that it's something that I think would bless a lot of people. I think people have conceptualized the ideas of letting go, but I think sometimes people think they're doing it when really they're just thinking it. And and
Okay. Well, can you give
yeah,
me an example? Or let's do it for a little. We have some little bit of time, so
just take 5 minutes and do it, and maybe somebody will be blessed by this that listens to it, right?
okay.
So it's worthy to do it. But yeah. So let's see here. So let's do an experiential letting go. Matthias, how do I say
Hmm.
your name?
Matthias. That's
Matthias.
very good though.
I suddenly embody a Slovenian dude. Matthias. I gotta get my Eastern European vibe going when I say that, because it's a different way of saying it. It's subtle, but
Very
it's
subtle. Yeah.
it's definitely a different subtle way of speaking. I have to channel some movie that I've seen or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's the French say it's a schwa. It's a thing. It's a different thing. Yeah.
Beautiful name, by the way, Matthias.
Thank you.
Is Matt a correlative name in English? Do you feel?
It's fairly similar, but I think it's not a direct translation.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yep.
Matthew maybe Matthew would be closer. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Possibly. Cool. So Saint Matthew in this. No, I'm just kidding. So Matthias. Matthias, in this moment, why don't you just allow yourself to be relaxed in a chair? Sometimes I like to tell people, just feel the chair beneath you, be
All right.
aware of your breath for a moment,
All
and
right.
we're gonna go ahead and just do a simple, very basic release that anybody can do. And I would like to share this in this moment simply because I think letting go is a fun technique that Doc taught, but I still think there's a lot of unawareness of what it actually is experientially. So in this moment, just notice how you're feeling. And I'll just ask you, Matthias, what is your now feeling in this moment?
Slightly nervous,
Sure,
excited,
sure. Yeah.
fear, a little fear,
Yeah.
um, some guilt,
Mm-hmm.
um, curiosity. Is that an emotion?
Sure. But let me ask you this too. What would you like to release right now? What feels like it wants to release right now? Would you say the anxiety, the
Yeah,
fear,
let's
or
let's do that. Anxiety. Yeah.
on the surface? Yeah. So, Matthias, in this moment, could you allow that feeling just to be here right now?
Yep.
And could you, it's like inwardly saying yes to it. Could you just say yes to that feeling?
Yes, I'm saying yes.
Awesome. And just allow it to be here. And Matthias, notice if there's any resistance to that feeling. Do you feel any resistance to wanting that to allow that feeling just to be here?
Yeah, some.
See if you can let that be here too. Welcome that.
Okay.
Yeah. And Matthias, would you be willing to let all that go? Just would you be willing?
Yep.
And if you could, would you?
If I could, I would. Yes.
Okay. So let me ask you this. When would you let go, Matthias?
Um, if it's a now question, I would like to do it now.
Okay. And just notice that feeling again and see how much of it is still there. And can you notice that sense of anxiety?
Yeah, maybe 20% still there.
Okay, excellent. And could you just really let it be here?
Yeah.
And can you let go wanting to hold on to it?
Yep.
Yeah. And could you love that feeling, Matthias? Love it.
Yeah.
Remember,
Yes.
love neither pushes away nor holds close. It's just a deep acceptance of what it is. And just for this moment right now, Matthias, could you, what would it feel like to love yourself in this moment? To allow yourself to give yourself some approval and love?
It would feel good. It'd feel very good.
Can you allow that to be here right now? A little
Okay.
approval for yourself, a little love.
Self-approval and love. Self-love. Okay.
Yeah. What does that feel like to give yourself love and approval in this moment?
Um, Comforting. Um, like one of those tree houses in cartoons.
See if you could allow yourself to feel that in this moment.
Hmm.
Really let that be here. And if you notice wanting to think about it, see if you can just come back to giving yourself that for no reason at all except for the sake of love. And let me just say this, you're beautiful, Matthias. You're a beautiful, beautiful human being, beautiful man, beautiful devotee, a beautiful friend, beautiful podcaster, beautiful being. And see if you can just allow yourself to know that by being that in this moment.
I think a part of me is resisting that actually.
See if you can let that resistance be here.
Yes.
And could you let that go, Matthias, that resistance?
Yes.
Would you?
Yeah.
When?
Now.
Awesome. Notice that feeling of beauty towards yourself, this feeling of love, approval,
Hmm.
abundance, health, wealth, security, all of that. This feeling of freedom right now. So the feeling of love, freedom, abundance, all these things that I just listed, they're a natural state of being. You know, feeling plenty, feeling
Yeah.
enough, feeling whole, feeling complete, feeling perfect. These things are the natural state of being. So we tend to like clog that vision up because we hold on to a lot of stuff. It gets in the way of that. So in this moment, see if you can just allow that vision, that way of being, just to be what is. And in this moment, Matthias, see if you'd be willing to share that with the world, that love.
Um, I'm feeling more self-acceptance. More, it's like Like a calmness.
Sure. Sure. That's beautiful. See if you can allow that calmness to really just be here right now. And if there's any resistance to that calmness, let that be here too.
Hmm.
Very good. And allow that calmness to expand or be what is in this moment. Just really let it be here. You know, everything we do or say in our life is before God. So, in other words, in a sense, everything we say or do is a prayer. And so, our life is our prayer and our gift to the world. And so, we perfect it as our gift to the world and our gift to God
Hmm.
and our gift to what we see as ourselves. So, in this moment, allow that calmness to be your gift to the world and an offering to the world. And allow that to be a reflection of your beauty. And that's something you can welcome because and allow to be what is in this moment because it actually is what is. You know, your being is beautiful. It is calm. It is resplendent. It is brilliant. Yeah. And whatever arises as a restriction to not allowing that to be what is in this moment, you can actually let that be a part of your brilliance, your calmness, your peace, your love. You can let that be here too. And so any resistance to that, you can simply welcome or say yes to.
Hmm.
That be what is right here, right now. And so we let this release, this surrender, be our gift to the world in this moment. And to that, I'll just say amen. And thank you for your love, Matias, and your being.
Hmm.
And, you know, that was just done spontaneous. I just want to
I
say,
know
like,
we didn't
you know,
practice this actually.
well, yeah, I mean, I don't think I've ever really done that with somebody, but I just felt like, let's wing this and let's just do it. And I guess I wanted people to see that, you know what? Releasing is simple, it's easy. I used to release from my neck up, like I would release in my head. And it took me, I had to deal with some trauma and stuff, and I had to dive into my feeling world. And it was a little disruptive right away because there's a lot of energy there,
Right.
but it led to such a beautiful breakthrough. And I'm just grateful for this, for letting go and for the peace and the beauty that it reveals. You know, just
Hmm.
getting out of the way, um, welcoming what is. We don't have to push away or hold close to anything. We can just be with what is, and life then shows its perfection to us. You know, so what a gift. You know, what a gift Doc's book is. What a gift the letting go community in general, people that specialize in that. Like it is a great gift to humanity as well, along with the 12 steps and in that. And Doc's life is a obviously a great gift. All these books here, what a gift.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Especially
thanks.
the right side, you have a lot of doc books there.
Yeah, there's a Meister Eckhart one here too. A friend sent me, so I'm grateful for that. But yeah, thanks for letting me be on here today, Matias, and being willing to release there at the end. I know that was just spontaneous deal. So thanks, brother,
Thank
for
you.
being.
I think that was really wonderful. And I think if people see that this is not any, it's not really that complicated. You can just, it's either two things. It's releasing the negative and stop resisting the positive. Those two sides of the same coin. And if you do them, uh, even if you do 5 minutes a day, after a
Yeah,
while,
yeah.
it accumulates. Yeah.
And I want to say the reverse is also true of what you just said. Jesus said, "Resist not evil." You
Mm.
know, so you know, it's sometimes we resist the positive too.
Yeah.
A lot of people resist loving people. It scares them. You know, so it works both ways. You know, it just depends. But it's letting go, and you're spot on when what you said. I agree. Um, yeah, my mind's going blank. There was something there that was going to say. That was going to speak, but yeah. Oh, I wanted to say this,
Mm,
letting go to be patient with yourself, and just to people out there that are just beginning that type of journey. Um, Matiaj and I want you to feel love. We want you to feel freedom, and don't get frustrated with yourself if you don't feel results instantly in this and that. It took me a long time. I was very clogged up, but
yeah.
the results were awesome, and I'm so grateful. And be compassionate to yourself, and you can't do it wrong per se, and you can't fail. Anytime you're being honest with your feelings, that's a blessing, right?
Right. And as Doc said, often if you could do better, you would have
Yep.
in the past. So I
Exactly.
use that when I stop trying to make yourself wrong for the past, because
Yeah.
that's a good one.
Yep.
Well,
I got it.
thank you, brother
Yeah.
Benjamin
Thank you.
Bigelow, to being on my podcast.
Yeah. Thank you, man.
It, wa-
Appreciate it.
it was amazing. And thank you everybody for listening and watching. Thank you very much.
Oh, team. Ooh, ooh, ooh. God bless you, brother. Have a beautiful day.
You too.